Thank you for joining us and listening to our podcast. Our goal is to inform and entertain you by sharing our knowledge and experiences of owning a business while making you aware of the risks, rewards, joys, and heartaches.
My co-host, JoAnn Forrester, is an award-winning business owner, teacher, author, columnist, small business advocate, and former host of the Empress of Biz podcast, Listen, Learn, and Prosper. She has 35 plus years of guiding small business owners to success. As a small business growth management consultant, she has secured over $70 million in loans and investments for her clients. Currently, JoAnn is president of the Pennsylvania Women's Hall of Achievement and co-founder of Celebrate and Share. You can contact her at 412-670-4322. 412-670-4322.
My co host, Sal Acosta, is a business broker who has helped over 100 business owners sell their businesses. He can help you buy or sell a business anywhere in the United States. If you would like a free and confidential consultation, please call him at area code 484 358 9470. He is ready to speak with you and discuss how to achieve your business objectives. Well, hello and welcome to Let's Talk Business. I'm JoAnn Forrester, also known as the Empress of Biz, and I'm with my co-host, who's Sal Acosta, and I call him the Duke of Business. And we are always interested in different types of business. Sal is a business broker who helps people buy and sell businesses. I am a semi-retired business owner who's now president of the Pennsylvania Women's Hall of Achievement, and I'm also an author. And as an author, I have been very fortunate to have as my mentor, my coach, and my editor, Mila Johansen. And I thought with all the different talk about regular publishing, self-publishing, promotion, and that was a big surprise for me, is once you write a book, unless you're extremely famous, you have to do a lot of promotion. So I thought it would be perfect to have Mila on and talk about what is the difference and talk about some of the things you need to do and about the upcoming workshop. And I know Sal has a lot of questions, but I want to give you a little background about Mila. She's a writing, publishing, and public speaking coach. She's a best-selling author of 12 books. She has developed what's called the short book concept, giving people worldwide permission to write and publish their short book first. In the last 8 weeks, she has helped 6 people publish their books. She loves to help people realize their dreams of becoming published authors and making the process easy and accessible. She also teaches writers and entrepreneurs where to get speaking gigs and helps them improve their public speaking techniques. Mila's grandmother, a hero of mine, taught Eleanor Roosevelt public speaking along with thousands of other women. Mila speaks 1 to 3 times a week about her books and coaching programs. Welcome, Mila. We are delighted to have you with us.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored.
Sal, I'd like to start with you because you've been reading the book and you said you have questions. So the book that Mila has that's given to you.
Yeah, thank you. So first, the book is called 101 Surprising Tips to Promote Your Book, When and How to Build Hype by Mila Johansen. It's a very easy read, but at the very same time, it's full of, well, like it says there, things to promote your book, things to help you write your book. And I guess maybe one of my first questions is, because I've been reading about this. I've been reading about this more from the sort of self-learning perspective, but I think it also applies to writing a book. A lot of people now, as technology advances, are actually advocating that it's better to write longhand. And some tablets with e-ink are coming out, specifically designed for longhand. Of course, we can also type, right? We used to write on typewriters. Now we use our laptops. And finally, and I want to talk about AI in a second, but you can also dictate. And dictate has also become a little bit more, let's say, easier with AI. So long story short, Mila, could you say a little bit about the pros and cons in each one of these? And is there one that you generally recommend, understanding that each individual and each author is different and maybe it even depends a little bit on the type of book that they're trying to write? But give us some pros and cons and some recommendations.
Well, let's talk about the writing longhand versus typing on a computer. You know, they did a Harvard study and they found out that students in classes learned more if they took handwritten notes. And so in some university classes, they're not allowing laptops anymore, which is very, very interesting. And so most of the writing I do, of course, and most of us do, we're typing straight into the computer. But there's often times when I'm on a vacation and I'll bring a notebook with me and I'll handwrite things. And sometimes I've handwritten when I'm getting stuck on I write nonfiction and fiction. And when I'm writing a fiction novel, if I handwrite part of it, deeper layers of my characters and plot come out, like kind of like I'm in a daze, or even if I'm like tired. Usually I try to write in the morning when I'm fresh, or but if I write when I'm tired, sometimes deeper things come out. And I think that's the same thing with handwriting. I just took 20 years of herbology with a very famous herbal teacher here who's written 18 books herself about aromatherapy and herbs. And whenever I took her classes, I took notes. I never took notes in college. Don't tell anybody. But I graduated with a BA degree, and I wasn't a good note taker. But now I'm a terrific note taker from studying with her. And I have like 2 big, long bookshelves of notes I took in that class. And then I read the Harvard study that says if you take handwritten notes, you retain the information. And she's always telling me I'm one of her best students because I remember everything she told me. And I think it's from doing those handwritten notes. So that addresses that subject. I would say if you're going to write a book or write a lot of books, type them into your computer. It's going to save time. But when you want to go deep and you want to discover things about your characters or your plots, or maybe even your nonfiction book about business, do some handwriting. Do some of that. Does that answer your question, Sal?
Yeah, it does. And so maybe just to follow up on that, what about, because I tried this and I failed miserably, by the way, but what about dictation? Now, back then we didn't have
Yes.
AI. This was years ago. So what about dictation, and what about dictation maybe helped along with AI?
Yes, dictation is fantastic, and a lot of people are doing that. I've done the Cinderella monologues. We're on our 4th edition, and JoAnn told her wonderful story about Ginger the cat in the 3rd edition. And once in a great while, I'll have like 15, 20 women in each book, and someone just can't follow through. They just can't sit down and write their chapter. So I'll get on with them on Zoom for 20 minutes and I get their whole story. And it's a lot of work because the transcript from Zoom is a big mess. Not as much on Otter and not as much if you dictate on your phone, or as JoAnn's been teaching me, that she taught me something this week, is to dictate into Word. So, and those transcripts come out cleaner and better. But on Zoom, they kind of come out a mess. But those words are gold, whether they're yours or there's someone else's. And I would have to take that person's 20 minutes and spend 2 to 4 hours redoing it so it made sense, because when people talk, they pause and they stop and it doesn't make as much sense as if you were writing it. But I was just on my way to San Diego twice this summer to swim. I like to boogie board in the ocean, and I was going to speak at some summits. And all the way down, I forced myself every day that I would have to dictate a chapter for my new little travel book to Italy. And the trains are not easy. Uber's better than taxis, things like that. And I dictated for, I don't know, 20 minutes, 50 minutes each day before I allowed myself to put my book on tape. And I had a little bullet list. Don't forget to talk about the trains. Don't forget to talk about the hill cities, And so then every day I'd just look at the bullet list and pick one and rant and rave. And then I did it in my notes. Your iPhone has notes. And then when I got home, I transferred it from notes. You can copy it into your email. Then I took it from my email and put it in a template for the book, which you can get on KDP, these fabulously made already templates, and just dump your stuff in there, stuff you probably already written. So there's a lot of ways to do transcript. One easy way, though, is for any of you, turn on your Zoom. You can even get the free Zoom. and start talking. I've had many people that I have a lot of clients. And when I first meet them, they tell me their whole story. And if I go, wait a minute, we should have been recording this. This could be your chapter. You know what I mean? Because it comes out so well and they're telling their story for the first time to me. So then I have them go back and tell their story to Zoom by themselves. Of course, you could do it on Google Meet. You could do it as JoAnn's been showing me this week. I just didn't know about it. Doing your transcript, put on Word. There's a little place to record it all right there, and it goes straight into your Word document, and then you can copy that into your template. So there's a lot of ways of doing it, and a lot of people are writing their whole books through dictation. I wrote the whole travel book that way. Now I'm going through and cleaning it because it's kind of a mess the way I was talking. And I would try to remember to say, la, 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 period. La, 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 new paragraph, because it will do that for you. And I forgot half the time. So anyway, I've been cleaning it at night when I'm tired, because part of the writing secrets in life is to do your best writing when you're fresh. And whether it's 20 minutes, 2 hours, 4 hours a day, during that one little slot that you plan for yourself, don't do any editing or research, because I could hide behind editing and research all day long. It seems easier than writing the new chapter. Anyways, it's a transcription. I'm so glad you asked that question, because all of you who are having a block, go on and talk for 20 minutes and you'll see you'll have like 1/3 or 1/10 of your book finished.
Sal, I know you wrote a book. What did you do? And tell people about the title of your book and what it's about.
Well, very good. A little shameless self-promotion here. Thank you for setting me up for that. It's Secrets to Buying or Selling a Business. And the reason I was asking those questions is I used to do a presentation at the Pittsburgh Business Show. So I had all these slides. And when they finally convinced me, because it wasn't my idea, to write the book, I said, well, how hard can this be? All I'm going to do is I'm going to dictate the slides, or what I would say when I put up the slides at the Pittsburgh Business Show, record that. Again, this was years ago. We didn't have AI, but I'm thinking, well, you know what? Maybe I'll send it to somebody in India. They can just transcribe it. There's 90% of the work, and I'll edit it a little bit, and that'll be my book. So I sat on my back porch. I dictated for like an hour or two, just going through my slides on my little digital recorder. And when I went back into the house and I started listening to that, I said, oh my God, I can't make heads or tails out of this myself. There's no way I can send this to some guy in India and he can make heads or tails out of this. I just wasted 2 hours. This is terrible. This is not going to work. So then I said, okay, no problem. I'm just going to type. And so I pulled up my slides. I started typing. And of course, that was way, way, way slower than I thought. I thought this would be a couple hours. I would work on this without exaggeration, maybe 4 hours on a Saturday, maybe 4 hours on a Sunday. And I did this for about 6 months. I quit twice. There's a whole story of why I even was able to get it together and continue after quitting twice, but I quit twice. Finally was able to get it over the hump. So yeah, that's my story, and it wasn't easy. I'm very happy I did it. Never again am I writing a book. I'm sorry to pour water on this whole conversation, but I will say this, at least I did one book, which is more than most people do.
I looked it up for a talk I was giving in Vancouver 2 months ago, and I say 80% of people on the planet want to write a book, but how many people actually end up writing a book and publishing it is 3%. So you're part of that 3%, Sal. And you did something, this is very interesting. I teach whole classes. People hire me to teach classes to their group sometimes. And I teach whole classes on how to use what is already written to use in your book. I mean, what about a college paper, a diary, transcripts from all your podcasts? And so this one woman I worked with, she had a beautiful dissertation or paper for college, and it was about altars, because she did an altar show in our town. She lived in my town. Normally I work with people all over America and Canada, but anyway, so we went to the library. I taught her how to make a template from KDP, joining the Amazon publishing arm for a physical paperback book, and she copied her dissertation and put it in, and voila, in 3 minutes, she had a complete book. She would have to go in maybe 8 hours and clean it up, or maybe 2 hours, but she got her book immediately. So I've taught a class for several people where I teach people to take already written material, maybe gathering it from here and here. And, I'm in like 10 compilation books, anthologies. I'll be in anybody's. It's a lot of fun. I don't do ones I have to pay a lot of money for, though. And then what I'm doing, and some other people are doing, is we're taking all our chapters from those books and making a book out of that. So we already wrote the chapter. It's edited. It's beautiful. And then I'll have a chapter of my life, because I try to do a different subject in every compilation book I'm in, kind of chicken soup for the soul type of stuff. I'm glad you brought that up. All of you, everyone who's listening, probably has a lot of material already written that would make a book, at least the short book. The shortest book you can put on Amazon with a spine, it's nice to have a spine, is 36 pages. Anybody can write a 36-page book in a day or two and work on it for a week and get it published in a week or two.
Oh, one thing I'm going to emphasize, because I was actually reading about this the other day, just those things when you're daydreaming. All the papers that I wrote in college, during my
Yes.
bachelor's, during my MBA, if I was in college now and I figure, okay, I got to do this paper anyway because the professor's requiring it for me to get a grade and graduate, I would also be thinking, okay, I need to do it so that I can submit it for the course and get a good grade, but I'm going to self-publish it, because no matter if I get $10, $100, $1,000, it doesn't matter. It's something that I had to do anyway. I had to do it with the professor, for the professor. I might as well get 10, 100, $1,000. And plus, you never know if it helps you get a job down the road too. So, any college students that are out there, and even high school, that are listening to this, you got to do something for school, put it online and publish it.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you said that and you brought all this up. I have a one woman, she helps kids start getting into college at a young age. And even it's not too late, even when you're in college, to get these grants. And she had me on her summits many times to encourage parents and kids to write a book, because if they did, when they got to the submission process, remember there's only 3% and that none of them are teenagers usually, they'd be the only one in all those applications that have written a book, and they might get into the college easier.
Yeah, and I wanted to add, because one of the things that guidance, I have written 3 books in 20 months about Ginger the cat, the story of a rescue cat. Some of that stuff, Ginger has her own fan club and her own Facebook page and her own website now. So, but some of the material I was able, and pictures was able to grab out of the posts that I was making about Ginger the cat. And I am still now, Facebook goes back and shows your memories all the ways back to the first time that you were on there. So I'm still finding posts about her royal self that I'm putting in a file saying, okay. And I think the next book about Ginger is Ginger Speaks. And she had opinions about everything. So it's just amazing the different things that you are pointing out that we can actually turn into a book. And a lot of us dream of being an author. Some of us want to take our books and promote our businesses. And some of us just want to write about cats. But that is interesting.
When I first met JoAnn, came to my class and she said she was thinking about making a book out of her memes on Facebook. And then I'd helped several other people do the same thing because of you saying that. So she did start this whole book from all the little snippets she wrote on Facebook and the pictures.
And that was a big help.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you, and we'll go back to see, because I am writing and taking your advice, and I'm going on to different sites that help writers talk to one another. There's a lot of emails that you get, even texts, of people saying they're going to help you do this or that, publish your book, do your cover, do this. I just like to hear what they have to say. And I'm often amazed at their approaches and their prices. How do you know that someone you're hiring is actually going to deliver what you say and it's reasonable what they're charging? Because I know that's a big thing with you. You've been a great help to many.
Yeah, I would warn you, a lot of you, off most of them. They call them vanity presses, and they want like 4, 6, 10, $20,000, and they keep adding things on. And there's some good ones, and I'm not sure though, because almost everyone I know has worked with them, and then something's gone wrong, and like one person I know went with them and they charged too much for a book, and another person, they put out her ebook first, which is really not how you want to do it. If you want to make any money, you want to put out your paperback first, because all your friends and colleagues and family are going to be so excited that you are part of the 3% who wrote a book, that they're going to buy your book. That's not my main reason, though. My main reason is, if you do the ebook first, they'll buy that, but they won't have the book on the shelf. I want my book on their shelf and in their hand. And so most of the Vanity Fair ones have you do the ebook first, because they're promising you can become a bestseller. And that's why they're making their money. They're not talking about the New York Times bestseller list. They're talking about Amazon, which there's some secrets to that. It doesn't take that many. And if you can become in the top 100 on your paperback, you're doing really well, which I can really pretty much guarantee all of my people get into that, at least for a few weeks, some for 8 weeks. But you can always make your ebook into a bestseller, #1 bestseller later, 3 weeks later, which is what I suggest after the paperback, or 3 months later, or 3 years later. All of my ebooks have become #1 bestsellers at least 3 or 4 times, because I know how to do it. It's in my book, 101 Surprising Tips. A lot of them are selling air. Sorry, guys, but let's be honest here. And they're saying you're going to become a #1 bestseller, but you're not going to sell that many books. And to pay someone like me to help you, it's good, and to get the editor and maybe the book designer, it's good to get that first initial money. And then that will help you pay for at least part of what you invested. And then you have to keep advertising. Even if you're traditionally published these days, they expect you to do advertising. Sometimes they'll even judge if they're going to take your book by how much social media you have. But it's never been easier to self-publish. And guess what? On Amazon, it's completely free. They don't charge anything, and they give you tons of attributes. The reason people hire me is there's a lot of tricks to it, and I get you through the process to get you more notice. Reviews are a great way to get noticed. Another great way to get your book noticed is to follow other people. It builds your algorithms inside Amazon. And the more books you have, build your algorithms. Books sell other books. So there's a lot to it, and that's where I come in. I hold people's hand, like JoAnn knows. I go, click here, click there, and we get it done. But it is completely free to publish on Amazon.
So, Mila, let me ask you a question, because, like I said, it took me forever to write my book. I quit twice. Maybe it took me 6 months of work and maybe a whole year with all the quitting and going back and forth and restarting. And so I didn't have, because I didn't even know somebody like you to help me. AI, again, didn't exist at all. I know from reading your book that, and I know now that you can do, 36 pages, you can do a book with a spine on Amazon. But my question is, how long should a normal person expect it to take to write a book, maybe with your help? Let's just say a short book, 36, 40 pages, and maybe more of a more traditional book. How long of a journey is this?
It depends upon your motivation and how fast you write. Like if you were going to use material you already had, it could be pretty instantaneous, right? And then let's say you take my class that we'll probably talk about, write your short book in a day. A lot of people have written their book in that day if they went by my parameters, double spacing, 1.5 between sentences, or maybe the next day. And then a lot of people actually just get a good start on their book. But for you to do it in 6 months or a year, Sal, that was actually pretty fast. You did great. I have one book that I've been working on for 30 years and I just haven't finished it. I finished all these other books. I keep finishing books, and so I don't think there's a time limit on it. And except for when I was doing my grandmother's book, From Cowgirl to Congress, which is how I met JoAnn, is that book, I was going to try to go traditional, but I only had like 9 months and I needed to have it out by August 18th, 2020, which was the 100th anniversary for the women winning the right to vote. So I speeded it up. I had someone help me. I got it onto Amazon in March when COVID hit. I thought I'd be speaking all over the, where I grew up, where she worked in DC, where she worked in London with George Bernard Shaw, all these things. And then I ended up having to find my way online and learn all these classes. And I didn't even know Zoom, so I learned Zoom. I started speaking all over the world. I didn't know. I spoke in Spain, I spoke in India, I spoke in Brazil, I spoke all over the world. And I didn't know I could do that. So now it's open to all of you to start speaking about your book, which is another great way to sell your book. So there really is no time limit, but let's say that unless you have, like, let's say you have a book for Christmas. Okay, JoAnn had her book, Ginger the Cat Loves Christmas, and we wanted to get it out 3 weeks before Christmas. So we worked like the Dickens to get that finished and get that done.
You mean
And
like
we
Charles
did,
Dickens?
like Charles, yes, exactly. So we got it out. We got it out. You know, one interesting thing about my grandmother, you won't believe this, Sal. I think JoAnn knows. She put together the Pulitzer School of Journalism with one professor in 1911. She had a terrible childhood and she ended up at Smith College. And her first job out of college was to help this professor put together the Pulitzer School of Journalism. Then she became the first woman lobbyist. She later taught public speaking to Eleanor Roosevelt and thousands of women. And she took me along in her early 90s when she shared the podium several times with Gloria Steinem, Marlo Thomas, and Jane Fonda.
One of the things when we talk about self-publishing versus traditional publishing, I have done both.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very fortunate the first time, The Gift of Holiday Valley, I met with a woman, I gave her my manuscript, and we had lunch, and she sat and read it in about an hour. And she put her glasses down to the edge of her nose, and she looked at me, and I thought, oh, God, this is going to be terrible. And she says, I'll publish it. It was just like that.
You are so fortunate. I have never heard something like that before.
It just happened.
Wow.
And every time that I've gone to write, there's some kind of writing angel that it's happened. It's doors open and it happens. I did find out from that experience that I was responsible. They were a boutique publishing house and they did a lovely job of illustrating and cover and everything. But their promotional efforts weren't like the big guys. So I had to do a lot of my own and I had to learn a lot. That's why I was so interested in your, how to promote and your book. And so no matter whether you go traditional publishing or self-publishing, you have to promote. Am I correct?
Yes, and a good story on that is I know an agent who takes books to New York publishers all the time, and she lays them out, and she had two in her hand one time that were very similar, comparable, and they said, okay, well, which one of them has the most social media? And she said, oh, this one, and that's the book they took. So don't expect just because you're self-published that you will not have to do the advertising, because most of them will expect it. I mean, you might luck out and be, the next Harry Potter, and then they're going to do all these great things for you. So, and it's a lot harder. Like if you want to self-publish, you could publish within 2 weeks or a year, like Sal did. And when you work with me, it depends how fast you want to work. I can go as fast as you want to go. I have a whole team that when we need the help. But the thing is that with traditional, it could take a year or two to get an agent. You really do need an agent to broker the intricacies, especially if you go international, which of course every book should. And that's why Amazon's sort of our broker, right? But anyway, so then it could take another 2 years for her to find the publisher and another 2 years to publish. So it could take 2 to 6 years to publish. But if you want to be published now, voila.
Yeah.
Abracadabra.
Let me ask you this question, because one of the things that kind of binds JoAnn and me is our interest in business. And some people may want to become an author because that's how they want to make their living, or a side gig or a small business, whatever. Others may publish for all kinds of other reasons, or to support maybe an existing business. But whether you self-publish or you go through somebody else, you're going to have to spend a lot of time, a lot of effort promoting your book. I know you even talked about swag and t-shirts and different things that you could do for promotion in your book. And then again, we're talking about speaking and writing and autographing and flying places and things like that. Could you talk a little bit about, and could you give a little bit of tips on how to do the accounting and the business part, meaning how to keep track of your cost when you're providing maybe a swag or something and you're just handing it out. You may not know whether your book sold or not as a consequence of that. I know from other things, and I'll call it a mistake that sometimes people make, is they don't value their time. All right. So they're spending time on doing all these things, but they're not counting that time as cost that then they're going to match up against certain sales and certain revenue. So could you talk about tips, tools, tricks, things to do, things not to do?
Well, you want to be careful how much you invest in a book, but then again, you got to think, am I a business? If I took out an ad, what, I talk about Fussy Librarian in the book for advertising, and Fussy Librarian's about $60, and then you give away your book pretty much, but it makes sales and it makes readers, and that's when your book stalls. And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to give away my book, but you do. One of my mentors, she was traditionally published, and she decided she would make more money self-publishing because she already had a following, which we don't have. Most of us don't have. And so she started self-publishing on Amazon, and she does Fussy Librarian, and this isn't going to happen for us. She has a series sell, especially Cozy Women's Mystery. And so she has a series, and when she does one book on Fussy Librarian, she makes $5,000 every time from giving away that one book. So there's different ways of thinking about that. Other ways to really increase your readership is, like I said, do reviews, follow people, and then keep an accounting of what you're spending. You might be spending more than you think. Now, the swag, normally that's physical. So we're not going to do mailing. Some of us are, but we would be giving that out when we speak. One of the best ways to sell books is to speak publicly. And as JoAnn knows, she's very good at that. She sells a lot of books because she goes to events. And of course, everyone loves cats. She has a subject that's already like popular from the beginning. And it's humorous, and she's a very entertaining writer. Whenever I speak, like I spoke at a country club a while back, and there were 40 women from a welcome committee, something in town. 40 women bought my book that day. And that's the thing. They didn't pay me to come, but I said, well, if everyone buys my book. So 40 women bought the book. Some people actually bought it online, and some people bought it there. And I signed 25. So that's one of the better ways. But you want to be careful not to do too much. Like if you get stuck in Amazon ads, which you really need training for, you don't want to spend a lot of money on that. So, or Facebook ads. So I would be careful, and if you hire a company to do it, some of them are reputable. Some of them will do a lot for you. Most of them won't get it done. It depends on your subject also. Like she's doing cats, that's pretty popular business now. But here's one more thing, Sal, and this is really important, is what I teach people. We're not really making money from our book as much as our coaching. The book you're holding, 101 Surprising Tips to Promote Your Book. Anytime anyone sees that book and opens it, or I speak, they see I know more than most people, that I am the expert. The book made me the expert. I actually gave away 5,000 copies of that before I published it on Amazon. When I speak at summits, or like I'm giving it away today, if I speak at summits or podcasts, they always want a gift, lead magnet. So I give that away. I give away 5,000 in emails, which I had none to begin with, except for my friends, on Gmail. And now I'm up to 7,000. And then I publish the book and it sells. And every time I start working with a client, I mail it to them. Because, if you drop ship and mail your own book to someone through your Amazon webpage, it's another thing. They give you a professional Amazon webpage. You get 1/3 of that back. So it's actually cheaper for me to buy the book on Amazon webpage and drop ship it to people with no shipping costs because I'm Prime, than to order author copies and ship it for $5 from my house. And they do all the work. So there's a lot to the advertising. There's a lot to keep in accounting. And I'm going through my taxes right now, and it's a little hard. But make sure you count everything for your accounting. Like I spoke in Vancouver, so I got to count the air flight, the hotel, the meals, Ubers, and everything. And so then I spoke in San Diego twice this summer, and I drove because I'm just 500 miles. That's a lot, but 500 miles. I wanted my car down there. And so I got to count all this mileage and then the meals and the hotels. So make sure you count every little thing. Like when you buy a book to send us drop ship, count that little book. My book's $11.95. So I write that down, $11.95. And you want to count every little thing you do. So kind of open a sheet, have it on your computer desktop, so you can just go in and go, oh, I spent $10 here, I spent $20 here. I mean, that's kind of how I do it. I'm not the most organized for accounting, I have to admit.
Let me add some stuff. I've opened up a spreadsheet because I've done business plans. What I do is have a spreadsheet and I have all the traditional categories that we can take as business people. And I look at writing books, one, it's my love, and I'm doing it. But I also, because of my business background, I look at it as a business. And, the first couple of years, I'm not going to make a lot of money. I am going to have write-offs. But my goal is to make that $5,000 a month so that, it's just, I look at it as, first, it is my passion. It's the first time I'm able to do something that in writing that I don't have to please a banker. And that makes me very happy. And then I'm doing it and I'm looking at it as okay, this is a business. And the time that I spend with you and the time I spend in promoting or supplies, whatever, they are my investment in business. And maybe we need to have a workshop on that about what is deductible or not. Something like
Yes,
that.
please do that, because I think writers are creatives, right? We're not the best at money, which I bet my husband is, and he probably wishes I was better at accounting. But it's a good point, JoAnn. And thanks for asking that question, Sal, because that, coming from a business aspect, I'm not asked that question. I've never been asked that question by a podcaster.
Yeah. Sal, do you have any more questions?
Just one last question, because I know we need to wrap it up. We've been here for a while, and this has been very entertaining and hopefully educational for the people that are listening. This is a little bit of a personal question. So I know JoAnn is a big fan of cats and wrote her book on cats. I know you wrote a book on dogs. So I'm assuming
Yes,
you're a big dog fan. Just tell me a little bit about that, because I was curious about that.
I've had over 20 dogs, and I have my own form of training. It's not anything formal that you would read in a book. And when I was done with my grandmother's book, From Cowgirl to Congress, we had done a huge background of metadata at the end of the book. I mean, it was a very intricate book, 90 rare pictures, invitations with her and Eleanor and her family, and took 8 samples. That's another great thing Amazon gives us, is samples, but usually most books take 1 sample or 2. And this took 8 because of the rare pictures and the captions and all that. So then when I was done with that book, it was like, that was a lot. I had to write a fluffy book. So I started writing that in Write Your Short Book in a Day, my own workshop. I've written 2 books and published them in that class. I wrote 101 Surprising Tips in that class. And so I had to write a fluffy book. So I wrote a book about my dogs. It's quite humorous. And it's about how to really raise your dog, what dogs think, And I've used my pictures of my own dogs for a man on Fiverr to make me little cartoons of them. And it looks just like them. In fact, when I was walking them, I couldn't see them anymore. I could only see their little cartoons. Like Franklin, he tried to speak words like humans, like that. And he would greet everyone on the way in. So I had him in a professor jacket with glasses reading an encyclopedia with a stack of books next to him, and my other dog, who was sneaky, I have her in a ballerina outfit up on the counter trying to get the turkey, things like that. So, and actually the book got slammed by some traditional dog trainers, because I do things that were really different. Like, instead of a dog bed, which I tore up the first day, by the way, I found these quilts at the thrift store that had lines in them, sewn in them. I'm on my 150th wash of those. I wash them once a week. That's what they sleep on, And so anyway, I had to write a fluffy book. So thanks for seeing that my dog book was out there. I do love dogs. I love cats too, because they get rid of the rats and everything, but dogs are my passion for sure, Real quick, I just want to say also, I just wanted to tell you about page numbers. I just want to give you the page numbers. I told you publish your paperback first, no matter what, and then wait 3 weeks or so and do your ebook. But you can do page numbers. 36 pages is the shortest book with a spine. 25 pages is the real shortest book, but that's more like glued. It's still good looking. And then 79 pages, you can put your name and title on the spine. But most people are opting, which JoAnn did, to write their comfortable 120 to 135 page book. And then if you want to go on and do a bigger book, you could do the 200, 250 page book. We're not writing missionary anymore. We're not writing 500 page books unless you're doing sci-fi. And so anyway, then you can just get a lot of books. So let's say I have the modular books. If you saw my office behind me, those are my plays. They're long, medium, and short, and they go around the world, 22 of them. So, but let's say you start with your 36-page book, then you write your little longer book. Pretty soon you've got 4 books out of one book. In fact, my book that you have there is 70 pages. I couldn't stop at 36. I didn't know when I wrote it that 79 would put my name on the spine. And I've written a bigger book from it, The Bible of Self-Publishing, which is blow by blow, bullet by bullet, every single thing you need to do. You almost won't need me. You still want me to hold your hand probably, but it's going to go through every aspect of self-publishing. So the modular thing would put more books in your name on Amazon.
To wrap up, you have a workshop. You offer workshops periodically. The one that's going to happen at the end of the month, that is how to write your book one day. And I've used this several times, either get started or if I'm stuck, that always gives me a boost, or it gives me some feedback of where I need. So tell us briefly what that is about.
Well, it's my signature class. I've taught it like 15 times. It's pretty popular. People come on and we write all day. We write 20-minute spurts, and then we do information like all the stuff I've been talking about today. I go through a lot of the publishing hacks, a lot of information and resources. And then we write for 20 minutes. Then I go back and with my PowerPoint and teach you a few more things about publishing. And then we write for 20 minutes. So it's a 5-hour class. We probably write for like 5, 6, 7, 20-minute spurts. And if you do my formula that I put up on the PowerPoint in the beginning, you could finish your book that day or the next day. But most people end up coming and saying, oh, I've done the most writing I've ever done. And a lot of them end up signing up with me to work and finish their book. So it's fun. And like I said, I've written 2 books in that class myself and published them.
Yeah. Sal, any last questions before we wrap up or comments?
No, just want to thank Mila for all her words of wisdom and her time. And I know this has been a long podcast, but again, hopefully it's very interesting for anybody. And maybe we can motivate more people to write books. I mean, it can be fiction, it can be nonfiction. The only advice I will give at the very end is don't try to be a perfectionist like me. That is actually one of my character flaws that I will admit to. And I know Mila actually talks in her books about that. Just get something on writing and then you can polish it later. But don't polish and polish and polish and polish. So I'll leave it at that. And thank you very much for joining us.
I want to add that Mila is going to offer free copies, and we can put that on a slide so people are, and her contact information, so that anybody who's listening or watching, you'll find out how to get her book and find out more about her. Any last minute comment?
Well, there's a secret to writing. Just start. And like Sal said, don't be perfect. Barbara Kingsolver says, give yourself permission to write a bad book and then work on it until it's a good book.
Yeah. Okay, this is JoAnn Forrester, also known as the Empress of Biz. We're talking about the writing, and writing is a business, folks. It's enjoyable. It's sometimes painful, but it is something that when you have it done, it's done. And no one can take that away from you. So thank you very much. And Sal, thank you very much for your time. And Mila, most of all, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us and listening to our podcast. Our goal is to inform and entertain you by sharing our knowledge and experiences of owning a business while making you aware of the risks, rewards, joys, and heartaches.
My co-host, JoAnn Forrester, is an award-winning business owner, teacher, author, columnist, small business advocate, and former host of the Empress of Biz podcast, Listen, Learn, and Prosper. She has 35 plus years of guiding small business owners to success. As a small business growth management consultant, she has secured over $70 million in loans and investments for her clients. Currently, JoAnn is president of the Pennsylvania Women's Hall of Achievement and co-founder of Celebrate and Share. You can contact her at 412-670-4322. 412-670-4322.
My co-host, Sal Acosta, is a business broker who has helped over 100 business owners sell their businesses. He can help you buy or sell a business anywhere in the United States. If you would like a free and confidential consultation, please call him at area code 484-358-9470. He is ready to speak with you and discuss how to achieve your business objectives.